Talk about having big shoes to fill, or maybe that should be small shoes, because this is the all-new Ford Fiesta ST, a pocket rocket hot hatch that needs to be good to live up to its predecessor. And let me tell you, it's good. No, it's great. But the big difference here is that under the bonnet of the new generation ST is a 3-cylinder engine. Yeah, one that's been tuned for performance. Obviously, because it's an ST, it needs to be powerful, and it is, with power rated at 147 kilowatts and torque at 290 newton meters. I mean, I'm a massive fan of 3-cylinder engines, but I didn't know they could be this fun. The beauty of it is its tractability. In-gear acceleration is everything when you're punting through corners, and this is just phenomenal in that regard. Plus, there's exceptional grip as well. That's one of the things the Fiesta ST has done well for so long. Handling, enjoyment, driver engagement. You just don't want to stop driving it. The beauty of this car though is that it has a clever front differential, and the previous generation car never had that as standard or as an option. But now, wow, this pushes the performance of this Fiesta ST to a different level. It was already brilliant. Like, the previous one was probably one of my favourite cars of the last decade. This though, this is something else. That tricky diff is a mechanical limited slip differential from Quaife, and it's set to be offered as standard in Australian cars. If you're hardcore, you'll rejoice, but if you're just after a fun hatch that's pretty damn fast, the model without the LSD would be perfectly suitable. It wouldn't be the best it could be, though. But it's manual only, so it's going to exclude the vast majority of buyers in the city car segment, with only a 6-speed manual available. Thankfully, it's a pretty good one. So what about the gear shifts? Well, they're perfectly fine. First gear is a little bit short, so second, but the thing is, you're using the power really well. It feels fast, there's absolutely no doubt about it. And it brakes beautifully, it turns beautifully. The steering, there is a little bit of torque steer, but I mean, it's a front wheel drive car with big torque. Of course there's going to be a little bit of torque steer. It actually feels quite good because you know what's happening at the front axle. The steering wheel tells you what's going on. The steering is ultra direct. It's like it knows what you want to do before you do it. It's all well and good being fast in corners and fun to drive, but what about things you have to live with every day? The old model was a pretty hard rider. The beauty of this new generation Fiesta ST, even though it's manual only, is that it is adept at dealing with little towns like this. It's really easy to drive, the ride's really nice. In fact, there's no adaptive dampers, but I don't think it needs it. It's a really fine balance between comfort, control, and enjoyability. It's not too firm, not too soft, damn near perfect. And while 3-cylinder engines are typically associated with fuel miser city cars, the Fiesta ST has grunt and green tech in equal measure. It'll use just 6 litres per 100 Ks. That's all well and good, but what about the interior? What about how it feels inside? Is it better than the old one, which was maybe not as good as it could have been? Yeah, the answer's yes. Let me show you. I'll be honest, the previous generation Fiesta ST's interior was probably one of its biggest down points, but that's been addressed with this new generation version. There's a big modern day touchscreen media system on top of the dashboard here, and it includes things like Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and a reverse camera and sat-nav, so it's up to date in that regard. Plus, there's a new digital instrument cluster in front of the driver, which includes a digital speedo, which is a bonus for a car like this, and that's also where you'll see your drive modes and things pop up. It's very intuitive, very simple to use. It's not as high-tech as the fully digital system in the Mustang, but this is a more affordable car, so you can excuse it that. The seats are terrific. They're very heavily bolstered Recaros and they hold you in your seat very well, although some people might find that down low in the hip area is just a little bit narrow. As for storage, there's a good pair of cup holders down here between the seats. There's a nice little covered center console area, plus there's a decent sized glove box. In the back, there's very limited storage, only a couple of small little cubbies on either side of the cabin, and there is no rear cup holder section, nor is there a center armrest, nor are there rear vents. But it is a pretty small car, so it should be fine. You do get ISOFIX child seat anchor points and top tether points as well. And the boot is very good for the size of the car. Perhaps the biggest question is whether we'll get the 5-door or the 3-door, maybe even both. In my mind, a 5-door would be a better option because it appeals to more people. It's a more practical car inherently. But the 3-door, well, Ford Australia might just go with that because it's a more selfish option. And if you want a 5-door hot hatch, there's always the Focus ST if your budget can stretch to that. Look, it's a fantastic car, but it's not all rosy for the Fiesta ST. It's missing out on a few things, in fact. Like, there's no drive mode that you can configure yourself. There's other things, like there's no rev matching on the transmission, which, I mean, you can get that in a new generation Corolla as standard in the manual. Yeah, Corolla. Why not here? It makes up for that, though, with things like a sports exhaust that pops and crackles like a madman, and other things like just being generally terrific. I said at the start of this video that the new Fiesta ST has big shoes to fill, and I tell you what, those shoes are overflowing. This is a brilliant little hot hatch, and if Ford Australia decides to offer both the 5-door and the 3-door, it'll offer more choice to buyers than ever before, but sadly, still no automatic.